Gradually, the one bad thing that came out of the New Deal, or one of the few bad things, I supported the New Deal, but when the rural electrification program came in, they ran wires to the farms and they retired the windmills, which they shouldn't have done. But gradually, our vision of a green-powered Earth, which was really born in the mid-70s, has become a reality because the technology has advanced. In the 90s, for example, Denmark made a political decision, a big green movement in Denmark, to not build nuclear. And so there were 4 major farm implement companies in Denmark that went deep into the wind business. And in the 90s, they didn't perfect, but they jumped forward into utility scale windmills, which are a megawatt. Very big, and by previous standards. Now, of course, they've been dwarfed. And I actually stood on top of a 1 megawatt windmill outside of Copenhagen in April of 1996. It was the coldest I've ever been in my life. But you know, so the technology has advanced. We now have windmills that could fulfill William Hieronymus's wacky dream. 5 megawatt windmills, very large windmills, enough to supply 5,000 homes, one windmill. And they are not only doable, they are very profitable. Wind power is extremely profitable. Now, we in the United States have enough wind power between the Mississippi and the Rockies that with currently available technology, we could generate 3 times as much electricity as the United States uses in its entirety. Now, you wouldn't do that because of transmission problems.
Yes.
But from North Dakota, Kansas, and West Texas alone, not even the whole state, just West Texas, you can generate 100% of the electricity the United States uses. There's no excuse for building anything west of the Mississippi but solar and wind and solar. Now, solar has also advanced. When we first started talking, solar was struggling along, photovoltaic cells. The science of photovoltaics, PV, which basically takes a silicon surface and when photons hit it, it loosens an electron. It gets an electron moving. That's how it generates electricity. So this technology was known in the 1830s and 40s. In the 1950s, in the Bell Labs, the early 50s, they perfected it for use, guess where, in the space program. They sent solar panels up on the Vanguard satellites to generate electricity up there. I've actually held in my hand what I think was the second photovoltaic cell, which Bell used. Now they send it around to these solar shows. There seems to be no theoretical limit beyond which photovoltaics will stop generating. This photovoltaic cell, which was manufactured in 1954, still generates electricity, and they don't know when it's going to stop, frankly. So between wind and solar, we feel we have sufficient capacity to generate all the electricity the United States can use. Now, what happened to me was in the early 2000s, 2003, I think it was, some friends of mine came to me and they gave me a grant, one of the few grants I've ever gotten, to write a book on the hydrogen economy. Because the hydrogen economy was getting a lot of hype back then. Everybody thought, oh, and this lasted about 6 months. And then suddenly everybody realized, well, you know, you have to have power to generate hydrogen. You know, the hydrogen is all around us, but in order to capture it and use it, it's really no different than electricity in many ways. It's a medium for carrying electricity. It's not, or power. It's not an actual power source. So I had to go back and say, look, you know, this isn't going to fly. But I had spent the money, so I came up with this idea. I wrote a book, Solartopia, about a totally green-powered Earth and what it would really look like. Not just hydrogen, but you know, a realistic vision of how we could go. And so I started with a hypothetical plane ride from Hamburg to Honolulu in the year 2030, because I think 2030 is kind of the deadline here. We're messing with our environment pretty big. We may not make it past 2030 if we don't do something serious. So I took totally available technology. I did not say, well, in 2015, there was a big breakthrough and suddenly, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to look at a green-powered Earth with totally available wind, solar, tidal, geothermal, ocean thermal technology. And you can do it. You can, in fact, theoretically, but with available technology, if we removed every fossil and nuclear generator from the Earth right now, and that includes coal, oil, and gas. I came up with this thing, coal, oil, nukes, and gas, King Kong, C-O-N-G, and basically said, look, you know, King Kong is the enemy. We need to get rid of all fossil and nuclear fuels. What would the world look like? And you can do it today. If you got rid of all the fossil nuclear generators, you could in fact install an energy system 100% with available technology, and the lights would not blink, with solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, all the other variations, okay? So the airplane takes off from Honolulu, we fly over Copenhagen, and we look down, and there's a country run on wind power. Now they are headed in that direction, there's no doubt. The Danes have the wind technology. They have the solar, and what we'll do is take every building in the world, but starting in Denmark, and put it on either a green roof, which is, you know, plants. You can put a certain amount of soil on flat roofs and plant grass or hemp or whatever, and it will insulate, and you can grow food on the rooftops, which people are doing, actually. Or you can have solar panels, or both, and generate electricity there, and then, of course, the whole country will run on wind. And then, of course, off Norway, as we fly further across Scandinavia, there are tremendously powerful currents in the ocean. Windmills will not just be in the wind. They have taken essentially a windmill. I mean, it's, you know, slightly varied, but they've taken it and put it underwater off the coast of Norway in a place I cannot pronounce. And the current is constant, much more powerful than the wind, much more reliable. And so this generator is going round and around, and it generates a huge amount of electricity. The problem in the oceans is salt. They really have not solved, after all these years, they haven't solved the salt corrosion problem. The Danes put in a very large wind farm offshore, and it's actually being ravaged by salt. They still don't have it. But so we will, in Solartopia, you know, Solartopia being a vision of a totally green-powered Earth, we will have a tremendous amount of wind, and it will be a staple of our energy economy.
And of course, those of us at PACE also look at ourselves and changing our lifestyles, learning to conserve.
Right, and be more efficient.
And be more efficient ourselves. And all of this is happening, but it can all happen without us, quote, going back to the Stone Age.
No, and or the nuclear age.
Or the nuclear age.
Which is worse than the Stone Age, you know. That's, but the reality is, you know, there's a dichotomy. There's a tremendous emphasis on individual behavior. And I think actually the American public has done quite well. I mean, I live in a suburb. We have these blue bins we put out every week full of our recyclables. Millions and millions of Americans recycle. What is the economic incentive? There isn't one. You know, this idea that it all has to be market-driven is false. Americans will, and people worldwide, we do have a survival mechanism. We understand that recycling is essential.
And the people here in Charlottesville and Albemarle are really conscious, and a lot of us want to be green and caring citizens.
Right, and people do it. We will buy more efficient cars. I happen to hate cars, and so I ride my bicycle. I'm lucky enough to live in a town that's perfectly flat, Columbus, Ohio, so I can go anywhere on my bike. I only drive as a last resort, and I love trains. I happen to live in one of the largest cities in Western civilization that does not have passenger rail service. But the return of passenger rail is extremely important. So in Solartopia especially, we have a return to rail service. People travel by train. Now, in 1920, one American family in 10 owned an automobile, and everybody got around great because we had trolley car systems within all the cities, and then into rail. You could go your whole lifetime and go all over the world and not get into a car, and people did it. And so it's much more. And
European cities are that way today.
Absolutely. I was in Europe last summer with my daughter for more than 2 weeks. We never set foot in an automobile. We went all over.
That's wonderful. And I am so thankful for you to be able to put this in front of us as a vision. We're dealing with the old world today and fighting the utility who want to continue to do large centralized plants, nuclear plants, when we have a vision, a way, a future that is wonderful. Harvey, it has been fantastic having you here. Your knowledge, your energy, your optimism.
Yeah, it's genetic.
It is, well, it's important. It's important for us, and it's important for our whole society to be optimistic and to look forward and find a future that is good for us, our children, and our grandchildren.
Well, the fact is we don't have a choice, and we do have the option.